Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I will wait a few more seconds in case there's anyone joining on the hour, but could somebody please give me a big thumbs up in the chat if you can see and hear me? Thank you. Okay, we'll start in a few seconds. Okay, so as I said, welcome to the webinar, everybody. My name's Sam, so I'm the Academy Manager here at Infigo, and I'm also joined by James Thompson, who's going to be manning the chat here today of our support team. There's a few of you already chatting away and thumbs up and stuff in the chat, so as we're going through the webinar today, please feel free to use that to chat to us, to ask any questions, to chat to each other if you want to. It's there for you to use, so please go ahead. So this particular webinar is more of a follow-on from last month's, where we were looking at some of the lesser known features within Infigo. So just some of the stuff that doesn't quite get the diligence it deserves. Stuff that maybe doesn't get used quite as much as some of the core features, let's say. This will be a maximum of 1 hour in duration. It might be a little bit shorter, because I'm going to be rapid firing through a few different topics. So I don't really know how long it's going to take to get through my particular content. After the webinar, as always, the recording will be available on the Academy as well. So you will be able to rewatch it or send it to your colleagues if you want to do so. As I've mentioned, my colleague James is manning the chat. So if you do have any questions, please ask away. James will be there to answer them as I'm talking away. Or if I spot something in the chat which I'm able to easily demonstrate on screen, I might do that as well. So please just ask whatever questions pop to mind. Accompanying this particular webinar, as you can see on my screen at the moment, is a sort of resource page. Now, because I'm just going to be really quickly going through these topics, this page will just give you links to more detailed information on those topics. So tutorial videos and that kind of thing. So I'm just going to copy that link into the chat so you can all get to that. And hopefully that's available for everybody. And okay, so let's get started. So the first topic I want to talk about, and this will be quite a quick one, is SEO, so search engine optimization. Now, I'm no expert in SEO as a whole by any means, because it is a vast and very varied topic. You need a very specific skill set to be a master at it. But search engine optimization, as the name suggests, is just all about boosting your search rankings up search engines like Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever it is you might want to use. Now, in order to actually be really effective at search engine optimization, you need to have a wider strategy in place. However, Infigo does provide you with some capabilities just to help you boost those rankings. It's important to note that the capabilities that we do have in Infigo to do with search engine optimization on their own are not going to be enough to sort of bring you right to the top of Google, but they are part and parcel of an effective search engine optimization strategy. So I've got a storefront here that I want to show you. And what I'm going to do is just switching between sample products that I've made and then go into the back end a little bit just to show you bits and pieces about how that's set up. So one of my products is search engine optimization sample product. And the kind of thing we're doing in here is just things like metadata primarily. So things like the metadata title of the actual page or the meta description of the actual page that we're looking at. And there's a few different places we can put that in Infigo. So you can see, for example, at the top of the screen here, part of my search engine optimization inputs have renamed the page. And if I start to actually inspect the page itself, you can see things such as meta keywords, meta descriptions, and various other bits and pieces that will be scattered within there as well. One of the most important things that people seem to want to do most often is to actually ensure that their product pages have a user-friendly name, so a user-friendly link, rather than just showing /p/the ID of the product. You actually want it to show a useful name, something like this. And again, we can do that as part of our search engine optimization settings. So just to show you the type of thing we can do, there's two different places you want to, well, two different methods by which you want to put in search engine optimization settings within Infigo. One of them is within the SEO settings area. So this is looking at more general areas of your site. So you'll see that you have a general tab, which will cover basically all of the pages that you don't specify specific settings for. However, most of these tabs have virtually identical settings between them. What you're doing is just defining some basic search engine optimization settings on those specific pages. So for example, if I go to my home page, you can see that I've got information in there such as title, description, keywords, and a tag URL, which are all part and parcel of a good SEO strategy. I will mention that when you are looking at SEO within Infigo, you will often see open graph data. Now, to the best of my understanding, this is more of an outdated method of search engine optimization. It's still there because some, let's say, more legacy users of Infigo might already be using open graph. However, if you're just starting with search engine optimization, I would suggest not using open graph data and sticking to the metadata instead. You've also got the ability on these pages to add tracking scripts to different pages as well, if you wish to do so. So you can add as many tracking scripts as you want to any of these pages just by saying add new tracking script and then pasting the relevant code within here. You also have the general tab, which is what we started off on, which sort of covers all of the pages where you don't specify specific settings. Another couple of things to draw your attention to in here is the ability to actually create a sitemap. So this is something else which is critical to SEO because it allows you search engines to actually effectively crawl your website. So you can enable the sitemap and select what you want to include within that sitemap, and then that will be available for you to view and for search engines to utilize. Now that's the general pages, and I won't spend too much on SEO, but just to point out as well that you can specify more fine-tuned details on a product level or a category level. So if you want to boost specific products and categories. To do this, if you just go to one of those relevant areas, so I'll go to, not customers, if I go to my catalog, edit one of my relevant products, and then you'll notice that products and categories all have this SEO tab. And if you go in there, you'll find that the settings are virtually identical to the ones that we saw elsewhere, but these are going to be specific to those particular products. And now that important setting I was talking about making sure you've got the correct extension to your URL on your actual product landing page, this is the field that you want. So search engine friendly page name. Okay, that's all I'll talk about with SEO. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any, although we do have the additional content on the page I provided for you. The next thing I want to talk about is different types of attributes. So attributes are a word that you might see appearing multiple times throughout the Infigo software with various different things sort of as a prefix to it. So you'll see product attributes is the most common one, which I imagine the vast majority of you will have on your products. We've got checkout attributes, we've got specification attributes, and we've got customer attributes. So let's take a little bit of a look at some of these. So what I want to start off with is product attributes. And an example of product attributes is something like this on the right-hand side. This is an extreme example where I've got quite a few different attribute options put onto one product just to show you what kind of thing they can do. But what product attributes essentially are is giving your customer the ability to select different options or input data into a product landing page before they add it to the basket and before they submit their order. So you can see for here, for example, I've got some product attributes which allow me to select between different values. Those product attributes can allow me to sort of increase the price. They can allow me to increase the weight of the product, various different technical details, change the SKU, various other bits, which I'll go into in a moment. But you'll also find that there's other types of product attribute you can have as well. So rather than just selecting between boxes, you can give your customer the ability to upload files. Or you can give your customer the ability to select checkboxes or manually input data. You've got loads of different potential options of how customers can enter data onto your products. Now, some of you might have noticed that as I selected between these different options here, the image changed as well. I will come on to that in a moment. That's my kind of next topic. So looking at these product attributes in a bit of detail and how we would effectively create and utilize them. So if we go to the back end, the first thing you want to look for is product attributes. And again, a lot of you will be familiar with the general product attribute functionality. Now, what we're doing is not creating individual product attributes on every individual product, because that would be very, very time consuming, especially if you're reusing the same kind of attribute over and over again. So let's say, for example, you're selling clothing and you've got different sizes, different materials. You don't want to be creating that every time. So what we do instead is we create the product attribute and then we assign that attribute to the product that we want to use it on. And it means that we can very easily reuse it over and over again. So you'll see here, for example, I've got a few different attribute examples. And if I go ahead and create a new one, just to show you, it expects information here, very, very basic, just what is this attribute that you're trying to show. Specifying what it is, so whether it's a checkbox or a drop-down or a text box, is done later on. This is just saying what is the attribute. Now, something that is much lesser known, but will definitely save you a lot of time, is product attribute values. So this is very useful if you are reusing the same values in kind of, let's say, drop-down attributes or checkbox attributes. So let's say clothing sizes, you've got small, medium, large. You might want to reuse small, medium, large for every single item of clothing. So you may as well predefine them globally. So if I just do a very quick example, I'll create a product attribute, which I'll call clothing size, and save that. If I then navigate to product attribute values, so a different area within Infigo, that will show me a list of all of my product attributes. But now I'm able to predefine some of those values that I want to use over and over again. It doesn't mean that they are the only ones I'll be able to use. I could assign an item of clothing with this attribute, let's say small, medium, and large, but I could still later on add extra large or extra small. It's not limited to the ones that we create in here. So if I predefine some options, let's say we just want to do small, just as an example. You can see also in here, I've got the option of allowing that attribute value to change the price, change the weight, change the dimension information, so on and so forth. So you've got quite a lot of variation you can do on there. And then assigning those product attributes is very, very easy. We just go to one of our products. Again, I'm just going through this quite quickly. Go to our product variant information, and we have an attributes tab. All we need to do within here is say add new record, select the attribute, and then select the control type we want this to be. So if you do want this to be a drop-down, if you want it to be a checkbox or a file upload, you select it from that list, and that is what becomes available on your product. Now, the other option I showed you very, very briefly was attribute combinations. Whoops. So one of the options of attribute combinations is the ability to change the image that's being displayed. So let's say you were selling a product in a few different colors. If you selected red as one of the attributes, Maybe you want the image to change to red or green or yellow or whatever it might be. And it's not just the image. There's lots of other different pieces of information you can change on attribute combinations. So how we do this, if I go to one of my products where I know I've specified multiple attributes, go to my attributes tab, and you'll see here that I have multiple attributes assigned, but I also have this attribute combinations tab. And what this allows me to do is to specify different iterations, different versions of those attributes, and then say what happens when that particular selection is chosen. So for example, here you can see that if that attribute is selected as 1, if that attribute is selected as 1, then the result will be I've got this amount of stock for that particular version of the product. I can enter its own personal SKU. And importantly, I can also give it its own set of images. So that will mean that with that combination selected, that information will be utilized. Okay, again, there's more information on that on the page I've provided to you. So the next one I want to talk about is checkout attributes. Now let's take a look at that in our product here again. So if I add one of those to basket. Now checkout attributes are, as the name suggests, going to be shown in the actual checkout area or in our basket or our cart. And they appear in much the same way as your product attributes, but they'll just be at the bottom of your basket screen. So you can see here, I've got 4 different examples of checkout attributes. I've got an area where some customer can put in some extra information I might need to provide. So let's say delivery preferences or whatever you want to get from them. And again, we've got various different types of input we can choose. So date pickers, options, radio buttons, which let us add price. Same kind of thing as we've seen with the product attributes. Creating these is very, very simple. So if we go to our admin area and just go to checkout attributes, it's simply a case of creating a checkout attribute and then specifying a few very simple pieces of information. So we can say, what's the name of the attribute? What is the type of control that we want to utilize? So all those different types of input were allowed. And then if necessary, you can predefine some values for that attribute as well. So let's say, for example, you had, do you want this gift wrapped? You could say yes and add an extra bit of money onto the cost, for example, or you could say no, where it remains the same price. Okay, next we have specification attributes. So these are a lot simpler. These are static pieces of information that you can assign to your products. And it's there just for information, both for your customer, if you want to provide it to them, or to your own team themselves. So it could be the material, if it's a static, non-changing material. It could be size specifications, whatever you need it to be. How those actually appear, I just go to my relevant example product. Will be something like this. So I've created a couple of specification attributes where you can allow it, you can predefine some options if you want. So if you do have some set things you can choose from, alternatively, you can set them to be free text input as well. But the main crux of the thing here is that these are static pieces of information on your product. They don't have to be shown to your customers. They can be if you want them to be, but they are associated with particular products. So how these are specified. So if I go to the specification attributes of Infigo, very, very easy. So I'll just copy that, create a new attribute, and then save it. Nice and easy. And if I want to predefine some options for that specification attribute, I can do that here as well. So for example, if there's set materials that you want to switch between. Oops. And then to actually define that on our particular product is just a case of navigating to that product within your catalog. Editing the product, and then there is a specific tab when you're modifying the product which relates to specification attributes. So at the bottom of the screen, you choose the attribute that you want to utilize, and then any specification attribute that you've assigned will appear at the top. So if I choose my new one, I can specify and select from the values I've selected. Alternatively, I can enter some free text. Specify whether I want to show it on the product page and hide it from the customer, and then add that as an attribute. So now when I view that product, I have my new specification attribute shown. Okay, so the last form of attribute I want to show is customer attributes. So a slightly different approach. These are really useful for specifying pieces of information which might not be by default available when you're specifying customer information. So the one I always default to is job title, which I don't think is like a standard input. So let's say you want to input the job title of your different customers. So on my front end, so I'm logged in as a sample customer here. And if I go to the My Accounts area, I've got a couple of sample attributes created here to show you. Not that one. And then if I scroll right down to the bottom, I'm in the front end here. So this is what our customer might see. Right down at the bottom, I've got an additional information section. And this is where all of our customer attributes, so our manually created customer attributes, will appear. You can specify it so the customer can edit the information if you want them to do so. Alternatively, you can make it so it's fixed information on their side, so only the administrator can modify it. Alternatively, you don't have to show the customer the information at all. It can be an admin-only option. So just showing you where to specify these. So if I go to additional customer attributes, you'll see there I've got a couple of examples. And all you need to do here is to specify a name for it, and then specify whether or not you want it to be shown in My Account, so whether the customer will see it, but only see it, not edit it, or if you want it to be editable within My Account. So for example, if I put both of those as active, if I go back to my store, you can see there I've got my brand new attribute, which at present has no information in it because we've not filled it in. If you want to manually fill it in from the administrator side, it's just a case of going to the customer area, selecting the customer of interest, and then there's a separate tab, which is additional attributes. And then you can manually specify the value. Okay, so I've finished the attribute section. So let's see if there's any questions I can quickly answer. James is on top of a lot of them, it seems. So the latest one that came in, I can see there is, can you use customer attributes to filter access permissions? I believe you can, although I've never tried it. So if I go to access permissions, and go to scopes, because it's customer based, we have customer additional attributes available at the bottom of the scope selection. So you can choose the attribute that you want to utilize, and you can specify the value in there as well. So yes, you can link it to access permissions. Okay, Dave has asked a question about linking it with Print IQ. That's not something I know off the top of my head, I'm afraid. So if we can't answer that during the session, then we'll get back to you after the webinar with an answer for that one. Okay, all right, what's next? Okay, so next on my list of things to show you is some of the lesser used product types. Now, I'd say a lot of these are used in more niche scenarios, but I want to tell you about them just in case you happen to have one of those scenarios that they're perfect for. So the first one I want to look at is kit products. Now, kit products are, hopefully, as the name suggests, ways of actually providing someone with a kit of potential things that they want to purchase in one go. So let's say you wanted to give a swag bag to somebody. So you would have an Infigo Academy tote bag that has a pen and a USB or something like that in there. You might do that as something like a kit product, potentially. There are other uses for it as well. That's just the one that pops to mind first of all. So if I go and look at my example kit products, here we go. Now, what we essentially do is we have the kit product defined as essentially what we call a parent product. So that's then got relative amount of control over various child products that we're assigning to it. Now, I've given these fairly obvious names just to try and make it really clear. So you can see we've got our kit product, and then I've got 3 products named child 1, 2, and 3, which I've assigned to it. I've set these up in a range of different methods just to show you the kind of thing it's capable of. So if you want to keep it super basic, where somebody doesn't have the ability to change what's in the kit, they don't have the ability to change the quantity, then you can set it up to do that. Alternatively, you have the ability to allow customers to select what's in and what's not in. You can select how much they have of each, and it will update the total price, for example. You can say stock quantities, if it's a message associated with stock. There's loads of different information you can show. And I'll show you how to do this on the back end in a moment. What you can also do is assign group names to these. And this is if you want to add them to the basket as an actual group of products rather than as the individual products that they inevitably are. So if I say, for example, nice and creative, sample group name, sample description, and I'll say that from this kit, I just want child 2 and child 3. I'm not bothered about child 1. So I'll add this to basket. And then you'll see that when that's added to basket, it's added as the kit product. But I've got the ability to expand that to see the child products, and it's showing me that group information as well, so that extra information associated with it. In terms of configuring that on the back end, it is pretty easy, to be honest. So if I go to my product management, locate the kit product I've already made, and I'm going to actually just click on the kit option there, which will take me directly to the kit product specific settings. And all we're doing here is specifying whether we want those group options that we were talking about moments ago, specifying which products we want within the kit. And then any product that we specify we do want as within the kit appears in this list at the bottom where we can choose which options we want associated with that child product. So, for example, whether we want it to be optional, whether we want people to be able to change the quantity. You can specify here how much control that person has. Okay. So the next type. So if you're actually looking at the example page that I've given you, this one will not have a relevant link. I didn't quite get to creating the resources for this one, unfortunately, but it's an attributes as products. Now, this will be a really quick example because when I was developing the content for this webinar, I think there was a slight bug found with this one, which I've raised and will be fixed. But I'll just give you an idea of what it can do at the moment until it's been fixed. So, attributes as products. Now, what this basically allows us to do, and again, it's fairly niche scenarios, is we can add a product attribute to our product. So the same as we saw before, but what it means is that those attributes are actually linked to specific child products. So you'll see here that I've created a product attribute where my attribute values are child 1, child 2, and child 3, which are the names of those products that we were looking at before. And when this is fully functional, what this should mean is that when we select these products and then add to basket and go through the ordering process, then those particular product types, those child products, are the ones that will be added to our order. In terms of configuring this, it is relatively straightforward. All you actually need to do is a similar process to what we saw earlier on. So you create a product attribute. So I've created one here called attributes as products, just to be really, really clear. And then when you actually add that product attribute to a product, so if I go back into my product variant settings and go to attribute, when I've been adding values to those attributes, the names of the values that I've added need to exactly match those child products that we want to associate them with. And when this is done, that should mean that it links the two together and it will add those into our order instead of just the parent product. Now, as I mentioned, this is something that will need a bit of fixing in the coming weeks. Moving swiftly on, we've got multi-product, which is fairly similar in a way. So what a multi-product custom product, which is a bit of a mouthful, will do, it looks fairly similar. It's just operating in a slightly different way. It gives us the ability to directly add child products to a basket from a parent product. So a good example of this might be if you've got different poster sizes, for example. So you've got an A0, an A1, A2. You might have different buttons available within the generic poster product. And then when you click on that button, it will directly add the child product to the basket. So for example, I'm on my parent product here, as you can see. But then as soon as I click on one of my child products, that's the one that immediately gets added to our basket. Just let me have a drink for one moment, sorry. Okay. So in terms of setting that up, again, it's quite nice and easy. By the way, I should point out, and this is important for a lot of these lesser used product types, you will need to activate them on your storefronts before you can actually create them. So by default, only some of these sort of core product types are activated. You can do it yourself. You don't have to ask support. If you just go to think it's admin area settings. And you have the ability within here to choose which product types you want to make available. Now, I'm logged in as a super user here, so I might have a few more options than you. I'm not quite sure. But you should be able to enable things like kit products and attributes as products and that kind of thing. And then once those are activated, inside your product catalog, when you create a new product, you have the ability on this product type to choose custom. And there you can see my different product types. Okay, back to multi-product. So the product we were just talking about. So if I go to the multi-product specific settings, this is the interface that you're presented with. So all you're doing is you go to your parent product and you want to select which child products you want to associate with it. So you select the products you want in the options, and then you can define what you want the resulting button to actually display. So you remember on my front end, it showed add child 1 to basket, add child 2 to basket. I was able to manually specify what those buttons were saying. And that's just using those options there. And if you are CSS savvy, you can assign your own CSS to that button as well. Okay. Right, I've got one more product type to show you, then we'll have a look if there's any outstanding questions. So this is quite a new one, actually. Again, quite niche. I think it was designed more for the labels industry, but it's definitely applicable, sort of the wider spectrum. And it's the multi-version product. Now, let me just show you an example of this. At the moment, this is only applicable to multi-part products, so upload product types. What it's essentially getting a customer to do, let's say they've got a product which is fundamentally the same, but the artwork is different. So in the labels industry, you might have, you've got your primary label, your shape, your material, whatever it might be, but the actual design is a bit different. You might want to be able to specify them all in one go, because if you can manufacture more of them in one go and in one order, then the overall cost might be cheaper. So you don't have to sort of put that through multiple times or add it as multiple entries into the order. So let's just show you what I mean. So if you've got this multi-product or multi-version option available, you get a window similar to this. And all you're doing is specifying the number of versions that you want. And then you can upload different versions of that product. So if I go to upload, it loads up a separate page. And this is just a little interface where it's showing me the different versions, whether or not artwork has been uploaded for it, and how much I want of each of those different versions. So for example, let me just take a look at these. So let's say there, I've got one version of my label. And let's say I want 500 of those. $250 of those. Oops. And 100 of those. Okay. So you can see there, we've got 3 different versions of the same product. It's given me a total. I've not specified any pricing, but it would work that out. And then go to add to basket. That's then added to basket as sort of the parent version of the product. But if I then go to expand, you'll see it's got different jobs and order lines within that. And when you actually put the order through and look at it in shared print operations and that kind of thing, you'll see it as those separate order lines, those separate job lines. Okay. I think James is mid-reply to one of those questions, so I'll leave that for the moment. Right, so stock limits is what I've got next. So this is a relatively new bit of functionality. Well, I'll say that, maybe a year or so old, which gives you the ability to actually specify how many of a certain product a certain customer can buy. So let's say you want someone to only be able to buy 5 of a certain product, even though you've got more in stock. You can specify that for a particular customer or a particular group of customers in a very similar way and in the same area as access permissions. And it means that you can very easily track and control who can buy how much of each. So let me take a look here. So you can see already, I will show you the background context of this in a moment, but I've got a stock limits example product where it says my availability is 4. Now I actually specified that this user could have 5 of those products. However, in a previous order, I've already put through an order with 1 of those taken. It remembers that that particular user has already ordered 1 of those and then says they only have 4 available. So it's not just for that they can order 5 at once. It means they can only order that amount in total, even with different order numbers. So you'll see if I try to order more than I'm allowed, it won't let me. Now, in terms of how you actually specify this, so if I go to access permissions, because it is in the same area. Now, access permissions is a big topic in itself that warranted its own webinar a while back, so I won't go through all of these. And there is loads of resources available on that if it's a new topic to you. However, if I go to set up access permissions, in a nutshell, what we're doing is specifying scopes and targets to create rules. So scopes are a customer or a group of customers. Targets are a product or a group of products. And then rules are how we're combining those scopes and targets together. So our rules are generally for our access permissions. So are we granting or denying access to a product, to a customer? However, we can also use the same thing with stock management. So the stock management tab, all we're doing is saying add new record. You select the scope, you select the target, and then you select the limit that that particular combination is able to achieve, is able to purchase. And what you'll notice as well is that once you start placing orders using this methodology, it will actually keep a record within this section here of those particular orders and who placed them. Now, remember as well that if you do actually want to enable this feature, it does need to be done within the settings area of stock management. I did make the mistake when I was setting this up of not turning that on and spent a good 5 minutes confused. So make sure you're in stock management and settings, and then it has its own independent enabled button. You also have the ability in here to make sure it's displaying the stock quantity that the particular customer has available. Okay, let me just take a quick look through the questions list just to see if there's anything I can answer quickly. So what I'm noticing is that a lot of these are stuff that we'll have to address afterwards. I will actually, once we've finished the webinar today, anything that I'm not able to answer or myself or James can't answer immediately, I will collate into a list and I will send all the answers out later on. So you will get an answer even if you can't get them right now. So Keegan, you ask a very good question there, is can you reset that stock limit on a quarterly basis or a yearly basis or something like that? That was something I was considering when actually configuring this. I didn't immediately find a setting which enables you to do that, but I will check on that because that is something which I think is fairly critical to this piece of functionality. So I'll see if that's available, and again, I'll get back to you. Okay. So 15 minutes. So the last thing I want to talk about, or the last topic, is shipping and production restrictions. So these are features which primarily allow you to allocate an amount of time it takes to produce a product and separately to ship a product. And it can be used in features such as if you want to show a delivery countdown on your actual product page itself, or it can be displayed to the user when they order, or it can just be available in your back end, in your order area, just so you know when something should be shipped and when it should be delivered. And this can be done so it's created automatically. So you can specify different lead times, you can specify different delivery methods and how long they will take. Loads of different potential things you can do here. First thing, very quickly, I'll show you is the ability to configure calendars. So when we're generally speaking configuring these production and delivery and shipping restrictions, we're doing it sort of on a quite a repetitive basis. So you might say that, okay, well, this method takes 3 days and we don't include Saturday and Sunday. And I'll show you that in a moment. But situations might arise where you have public holidays, or maybe your production shuts down for a few days whilst you're doing maintenance or whatever the hell it might be. So what you do is you have the ability to specify these calendars where you can say when something's not operational or which are non-operative days. And then it will automatically means that the expected delivery date will be updated automatically and will be shown to the customer or however you set it. So all you do is create a calendar within the calendar section. And then if I go to configuration, it's really nice and easy. All you're doing is selecting the days which aren't to be included. So they're days where no production or no shipping, whatever you're creating it for, will happen. So you can see there I've selected 3 days in January as an example. They've come down to the bottom and I can put a note in there if I wish to as to what the reason is for that not being available. You can also specify that as a recurring if you wish to do so on a yearly basis. So let's say it's a public holiday. Okay. So let me show you the production and delivery restrictions on the front end, just to give you an example of what they are. Okay, so I've got two example products. One's long lead time and one's short lead time. So I'm not promising I've configured this 100% correctly. I did it quite quickly this morning, but just to give you an idea. So you can see there I've set it so that we've got a countdown. We can specify when that countdown resets. So I think I've got it set to be if they order before 3 p.m. local time, then it will be a day less for the delivery, for example. But you can see because in my time zone, I've gone past 3 p.m., it's now saying that you need to order within the next 23 hours to actually achieve this delivery date. And then you can set it. So if I start, excuse me, going and adding to the basket, let me just get rid of these surplus products. Okay, so I've got my short lead time product. proceed through the checkout. And you'll see here that I can set it as well so that the customer, as they're ordering, can see when it's expected to be dispatched and when it's expected to be delivered. Now, again, you don't have to have this displaying to the customer. This can just be information that's available on your side of things. But what you can see is that because I've got a quick turnaround in this case, I think it's set to a 1 day. It's saying that if you order it today, it will be dispatched on day 3. And then because of my particular selected delivery there, it will be delivered on day 3. But if I go to my more specified methods of delivery, so next day, it will be delivered on day 4. Standard, it will be delivered on day 8. So you can see there the kind of production restrictions and shipping restrictions in action. So if I just proceed through the checkout, that one, and then I'll quickly show you what you could, well, actually, first of all, I'll put through one of the long lead time ones as well so you can see the difference. You can see already that the date is much longer. So you can see now that I've only got dispatch on day 9. Now, the lead time I've got for this particular production method is 3 days. However, because that 3 days interacts with both a weekend and that production shutdown that I specified in the calendar, it means that the actual dispatch day for that particular order is only going to be day 9. So it automatically calculates all of that. Okay, so taking a look at that in your side of things, the admin side of things. So if I go into my orders and take a look at one of those, you can see in the order it's showing you a dispatch by and deliver by date. However, a little known feature in here to figure out how it's actually calculating that is within this audit calculation section right at the bottom of that delivery. So that will show you how those have been combined in terms of production and delivery. So it's showing you the date ordered was today, and then it's showing you dispatch and delivery, but it's showing that the production restrictions, so 2 days have been skipped for the weekend, 2 days have been skipped for a calendar in this particular case. And then the delivery, we've got a total of 5 days. We've got a 3-day offset, and then 2 days which are skipped because I chose to skip weekends as well. So you can see how this is all automatically being calculated. In terms of how to configure those, and again, there's loads more detail on the Academy videos. So if I go to production restrictions, these shipping restrictions are done in a very similar way. So I'll just show you these ones. Go to configuration. You can see there it's showing me the execution days. So generally, how many days will it take if that is selected? Is it skipping any days? And you have got the ability to specify tiers as well. So let's say if they order one of a certain product, it takes 1 day. But if they order 5,000 of a certain product, it might take 3 days, let's say. So you can get it so it automatically changes those tiers. In terms of actually assigning these, excuse me, the production restrictions can be assigned on a product by product basis or on a product group if you wish to do so. So for example, if I go to my long lead time product, go to the product variant settings, you'll find right down at the bottom one option there, which is the enablement of our delivery countdown, which is what you saw on the product landing page. But then we can also specify which version of the production restrictions applies to this particular product. So for this particular product, we've specified the 3-day restriction. Whew. Okay, so that is probably a very, very quick overview of all of those bits of functionality. As I say, there's loads more information on the Academy resources, or you can, of course, submit questions and whatever you need to do to our support team. I hope that's been useful to you. If there is any question, I can see James has been on it, answering all these questions. If there's anything he's not managed to answer, as I say, we will get back to you. Actually, one last minute addition, which is not on the thing, which I just saw today. Very useful to anyone who uses content templates. So this is a brand new thing that's just been deployed. Let's see. So if I go to editable content, this is where anywhere you're using content template. One thing I found quite frustrating was the fact that you couldn't duplicate sections. So let's say you created a section which had loads of different images and a specified layout. In days gone by, you couldn't duplicate those. That has now changed in the latest deployment. So if I go to, let's say, my homepage banner, for example, which I hope is customized. Yep. You'll see that they now have the ability to duplicate. So that will just create you a carbon copy of that particular section for you to further modify with minor tweaks if you wish to do so. So just an additional time saver for you, which I think was important to let you know. Right, I've been doing a lot of talking. Last thing to let you know is that next month's webinar, the plan is for this to be on something we're calling the refactored form builder. Now, it will be given a much nicer name as it's coming closer to its release date, I'm sure. But this is something very exciting, a very exciting bit of functionality. It can completely revolutionize the way you construct your mega edit products, potentially. So I would recommend signing up to that if you wish to do so. I've not got the link right now, but I will be sending out an email, of course, in the future. Yeah, that's it, basically. So please, if you have any last minute questions, please keep firing them in. We'll answer them or take them away. Otherwise, thank you very much for your attention. I do very much appreciate you all attending these webinars and hope you find something useful from them. Thank you very much. Thank you to James, who's answering all the questions, and I'll see you all next time.